Welcome to Life Lessons and Legacy, the podcast where we delve into the stories that shape our lives and the lessons we carry forward. I'm your host, Mr. Cedric D. Nelson, and I'm excited to embark on this journey of discovery, growth, and inspiration with you. Each episode will explore the triumphs, challenges, and pivotal moments that define who we are and who we aspire to become. From personal stories to enlightening conversations with guests from all walks of life, we'll uncover the wisdom, insights, and perspectives that illuminate the path to a meaningful existence. Whether you're seeking motivation, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, Life, Lessons, and Legacy is here to accompany you on your quest for fulfillment and purpose. So sit back, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Yeah. So quick question. So what goals do you have coming up?
I was saying that, that whole experience was just a beautiful moment. I'll never forget that. So, and I always go back to that moment because on this journey as an entrepreneur and as a writer, you stumble sometimes. You stumble, you get stagnant, and you need those experiences to remind you to keep going. And it's also interesting, and I know that this is God, this is the universe, because every time that I find myself at a low point, somebody text me, email me, or reach out to me about my work, and how either they had my book or they want to order copies or this and that, and that's always something that I've been very grateful for and it uplifts me because and that also goes back to when I can tell who's in it for the right reason, who's not, because when those dry moments occur, you gotta know it's your passion that's going to keep you going. The fact that you care about it is going to keep you going, because money comes and goes, but you got to have the vision and the feeling in it to keep it growing. So as long as I got the passion for it, I'll keep doing it. And it's been a beautiful journey, and I've learned so many lessons, so many things about myself. I hope to only learn more and do more.
Yeah. And as long as you keep doing what you're doing, you will. I think I've written a book as well. And like you say, in the beginning, it's one of the first things I think for me was just being able to acknowledge that I wrote a book and not feeling like I was doing something wrong. And I was like, hey man, I wrote this book. You want to buy a copy, or not just keep giving it away? Or that's the main thing. You come to the realization, okay, I wrote the book. Now I'm proud to say I have a book, I have a podcast. The first time I went to my first book signing, the first hour, they had like a game going on in Mississippi State, but they had a double header or something, where it rained or something. Basically, nobody was coming to the bookstore because of the weather. And I was sitting there first 30 minutes like, man, I'm not going to sell a book. And then, later on, people start picking up and start coming in, but just pushing through there, like you said, looking at, well, what's my purpose? My purpose is not to be a millionaire selling this book. My purpose is to help others. So you sit there and you work through it, and it builds that confidence. Like, okay, I've been through worse. Okay, nobody showed up right now. I'm gonna keep looking. 30 minutes, somebody's coming. I'm gonna get somebody. So
yeah, and that's what it's all about. What kind of book do you have? I'm not familiar. Tell me about it.
It's called it's called Life Lessons and Legacy. How to take life lessons and shape your legacy. So it's basically a motivational book, self-help book, available on Amazon. I'll send you the links and everything. Of course, I'll get yours as well. But yeah, same thing. Just going out there. It was something I always wanted to do, and I was like, you know what? Now's the time. But I tell people, the book has always been in me, just like your book's always been in you, I'm sure. But it's something about God and his timing. You would think yourself, I should have did this 10 years ago, but that wasn't God's timing. And a lot of times when we bump our heads, it's because we don't follow God's timing. Like we say, this is what I want to do. And God's like, no, not yet. You need to go, bump your head a little bit over here and do this.
So that's what I feel like for me, this year has been about. 2024 has been about listening to God's voice, right?
Yeah,
and I've been saying it in my meditation, because in the past, and this is something we currently work on every day. It's not like a one and done, you fix. This is a day-to-day, you have to practice it, because in the past, I've always struggled with being impatient. I always struggle with I wanted, how can I figure this out? Like I said in the beginning, I was always wanting to think outside the box. Okay, it didn't work this way. Let me try this way, right? But sometimes that can get in my way. sometimes it's moments where I do need to wait, and I don't necessarily have to jump into gear and figure out how can we keep this going, or how we do next. Sometimes I do need to wait and be still and know and let him do his work.
That's
And
it.
I like to remind myself, like, I mean, we humans, we, Christians, whatever, it's like, we don't even know, like, we have no idea why we're here. We don't even know how we got here, not outside of the scientific way.
Right.
But I'm just saying, it's like, you don't know what God created you for. So why are you operating through life like you have to have it figured out?
Right
He
now.
didn't ask us to figure, like, he didn't ask us to, like, be here and then you're supposed to know it all. It's a journey. He's the writer. He's the director. We just here to play our part. He give us the role. So
that's it.
And it took me some time to really grasp that and understand that. And so I say this year is like my previous job, which it was a decent job. I was a copywriter.
Okay.
And but every day I would go to work and I was just like, this is just, I just felt purposeless. Like, you know what I mean? Like I go and, it was a cool job, but it was just like, I don't feel like I'm using any of my abilities. Like,
I'm just here every day.
Basically, like, just here. And I'm like, so I'm like, I feel like, I was talking to God, and I'm like, I feel like this is the beginning of settling, and I don't like it. And so I was like, I would like talk to God on my way to work every morning. And by the way, like, I had to get up like 4 a.m. to be there at 5 a.m. So I'm talking to God on the road while going to work, like, whatever is not for me, God, whatever is not for me, I just move it out of my path. And whatever is for me, allow it to come to me and make it plain. And I was telling him, like, may your will be done. I want to get out of my own way. That was basically my prayer every morning driving to work, because like I was ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, like, I just felt like I could be doing more. I feel like a vegetable there. You barely even really need your brain to do some of this stuff once you know it. So I just felt no room to grow, for real. So in that, with me saying this prayer ritualistically every morning on my way to work, a tad bit, just whatever. So in me saying this, right, I get a call around 7. I was a contractor. So I get a call around like 7 in the evening. I get a call 7 in the evening in the midst of me helping one of my neighbors redo his resume. I get a call that says, hey, today was your last day at the job, right? Yeah. And I was just
phone call.
I was a contractor, but it was, and like technically they don't have to have a real reason to let you go, for real.
Right. Yeah.
So they called me that evening, like, hey, today was your last day. Did you leave any personal items there? And I'm like talking through that in the midst of me building up my neighbor's resume. I was helping him. So I'm like, in the middle of helping him get a new job, I lose mine, basically.
Right.
That's how I feel. But like, even though that threw me off, and it kind of hit me like, what? But some reason I heard a voice that was like, don't trip. Just continue with your day as normal. And don't try to frantically figure out how we're gonna do this and this. Just wait. And I was in a decent position where I'm thankful that, like, I didn't have to like panic immediately for financial reasons.
Right.
I learned my lesson in the pandemic. So I was like, I didn't have to do that. And I just heard God. It seemed like, don't just be still and know. Just be still and wait. So there was that. And then in that same month, I got let go in the beginning. So I got the call that I was put in the beginning of March. And in the end of March, I had an award ceremony coming up that I was a presenter at with the Memphis Public Library, the Richard Wright Award, book award. Okay. And I was just a presenter. So I was presenting someone, Miss Alice Faye Duncan. They had named an award after her mother, and she's a well-known children's author as well, and she's from Memphis. And I was presenting the kids who won that award. But in that, God told me, don't buckle. Go to that award
Mm-hmm.
show, present that as if none of this even happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't know like I've
Mm-hmm.
been let go of life. And he was like, just show up and still be your best self, regardless. Show up and be your best self. So I did that. I'm rehearsing my lines for on the prompter and this and that. I'm like, you know what? All right, business as usual. That's what he's saying. Like just so I presented the award. Once the ceremony was over, like, Miss Alice, she came up to me and she was like, you know, like you did a really amazing job with the presentation, this and that. So I'm flattered. So I'm like, oh, thank you, and this and that. Meanwhile, stuff in the back of my mind still. And she just happened to say, and I hadn't told no one my situation or what was happening. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, be cool about it. She came up to me and she was like, she came up to me and she was familiar with the fact that I also write children's books. So we know each other from that community. And so
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I know that you're doing your books, but is that what you do full time? What else do you do? And so I was like, no, I just ended my contract just ended with my copywriter position. And she was like, really? She was like, how would you like to work at the library? So I'm like, what? Like, she was like, yeah, like,
God be
would you?
gotten.
Yeah. So I'm just like, what? And the thing is, when I was younger, I was trying for years to work at the library. They make it so hard to be
Mm-hmm.
recruited to work there, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
God's timing. And looking back, I feel like I wouldn't have appreciated it then. But
Yep.
now, like, she just comes, she's like, how would you like to work at the library? And I'm like, I would love to work at the library. And so, just as simple as that, she called over Mr. Jamie Griffin, which he's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the heads at the library. And she called him over, talked to him, and she was like, he was, she was like, this is, which me and Jamie already knew each other, but she didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But so she's introducing us like we meeting for the first time. So she was like, this is T'Arrah. T'Arrah said she would like a position at the library. Could you make that happen? And he was like, yeah. But once again, this was all off of reputation. Cause I got a feeling like if Jamie didn't know me or know my work or any of
Right.
that, he wouldn't have
Right.
said yes so easily.
Mm-hmm.
So it was as simple as that. He was like, yeah, we got a position open at the Orange Mound Library that's about to open up. I'm gonna send you the application right over, but finish it tonight so I can get it cleared. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, I almost felt like doing a praise dance or something because it just felt like, wow, like
Yep.
God told me, like, be still. You may looking at this like it's an L for you, but this is a W. It's gonna work itself out. Like, you ready now for that position that you have been trying to get for real.
Blessing in
So
the
yes, it was, and I'm so grateful for that. Like, so I also work at the Orange Mound Library as a children's librarian.
okay.
So that's like how that whole thing just came full circle in that. And I don't feel like that. I don't feel stagnant. I love my job. I love going to work with my library kids and
Mm-hmm.
bringing programs to the community. And also, before I always had jobs where I had to separate my day job from my
Mm-hmm.
career as a writer. I always had to
Okay.
separate the two. But now,
Not
for the
anymore.
first time, I'm in an environment where they celebrate it, they welcome it, they want it. You know what I mean? So it's like this is just all it works out, and I'm so grateful for that. And I know like that's such a blessing because now I'm aware of how it feels when you have to separate it and compartmentalize things, and it doesn't feel fulfilling.
Right.
So
Miss Marje, something so funny about, we talking, I know not some people are religious, some people aren't. So it is funny
yeah,
though hearing your story because I have something similar. So a few years ago, before I wrote my book, I tried to do a mentorship program. I emailed and called and all these different schools and all these different programs. And I mean, anybody that was available, I was emailing them, I was writing them, I was calling them, trying to offer mentorship.
yeah,
So nobody accepted it at that time. Oh, we can't use that right now. Wrote the book later on, you know, so crazy. I forgot about it, but I kind of moved on. I do a couple other business things. So I kind of moved on, like, okay, maybe one day later. And all of a sudden I get an email and a phone call. Hey, are you still offering your services? We can really use you. And I'm like, huh? Like this is years after I've tried to apply for this, right? And I'm out here,
yeah,
yeah. And so they call me, and not only do they call me, they buy books, and they actually have me doing what I want to do, which is mentor at-risk youth. So, like you said, it's crazy that at that time, that no wasn't necessarily a no. It was just like, not right now. It's not the time. You don't have
Yeah.
a book. You haven't did the research. And then if you just wait, like you say, you just be like, okay, but God, it's hard sometimes. Like, I'm trusting you. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know where you lead me, but I'm going to follow. And now I do 2 days a week. I go and do mentorship in this program, and it's crazy because again, you can't forget about the dream. Like you said, applying for the library and being like, man, they're not going to hire me. And then you end up
Yeah.
losing a contract and just so happen to still stand in your faith and go on and do what God told you to do. And then you end up getting hired for the job you wanted in the first place. That binds the two, that combines the two things that
Right.
you wanted to do.
In hindsight, I feel like still I wouldn't have been ready. I
Right.
wasn't gonna be
But you
ready
thought you
if I
were.
got it years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But you,
Hmm.
yeah.
But now, like, I have to appreciate it and to be thankful for it and to thrive in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like, so I couldn't. God is God. There's no way to
He is.
explain it. Like, God is just God.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a saying that life be lifing, but God be guiding. And that's
Hmm.
true because life be doing it. It be throwing them blows, but God is always like, just trust me, just be still. You do your part, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
do my part. So one of
Right.
my questions was, what life lessons have you learned? But I guess you kind of told me already about this. But do you have any other life lessons that or that you like to share with everybody?
I would say to my younger self, go after the thing that you really want to go after the first time. Because even though, like I said, with the Channel 5 situation, I knew that wasn't right. And I knew that I saved myself a lot of time with it. But
Right.
beyond that situation, I've had many situations where it's like I did probably what was expected of me or safe
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, you just end up wasting time anyway. Because I watched the interview with the actress Jennifer Lewis and Lena Waithe, and she said, the thing is, you can't quit what and who you are. You can't quit it. You can't cut it off, regardless.
Okay.
So it's like, go after the thing that you know in your heart and your gut that you want to do the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if it doesn't pan out the way you thought it would immediately, in the end, there's no such thing as failure other than if you just don't try. But there's
That's
no
it.
such thing as failure for real. So I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have known that earlier. There's no such
Okay.
thing as failure because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that perspective stifles us in so many ways, thinking
It
of
does.
what's the worst that can happen. And all that
Mm-hmm.
really is just wasting time. Because you
It
can
is.
fail, try again. You got to keep trying because it's things you got to learn. You got to keep getting better
Yep.
at it. You
Yep.
didn't come out the
You,
womb knowing how to walk and talk.
you
You know what I
didn't.
mean? I always keep
You
that
didn't.
too. Like, you had to keep falling, keep bumping your head,
Mm-hmm.
keep trying it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I say it's kind of like working out too. A lot of times as people, we want to try something one time and be great at it, right? And like get it, like, oh, I tried it today, so I'm in there. But it's like going to the gym. I can go to the gym today and work out for 2 hours, right? And that's great. But if I only go for that one time this year, I'm not going to develop muscles, cardio, or anything. But if I go to the gym for
right,
even 20 minutes a day for 5 days a week, eventually my body starts changing, my health starts changing. It's just constantly working on your craft. Like you say, if you want to do something, do it. Another thing I've learned as I get older, life is so short. You can be here today and gone tomorrow. So my thing is,
right,
what legacy are you trying to leave behind? If you want to leave a legacy, you're going to leave a cautionary tale or a success story that people can follow. So we're all leaving a legacy. So you need to figure out what it's going to be. And if your goal is to do X,
yeah,
Y, and Z, go for it. Why not? You know?
yeah.
So
So that's such a big question. What legacy? Because I pondered on the question when I was going over the question that you sent. What legacy do I want to leave behind?
when
And
your time is up.
honestly, that's such a big question. Really, the only thing I have to say right now so far in my life, I just want to do good with the gifts that God gave me and leave
Mm-hmm.
something behind that can make the next generation after me and people after me better. I just want to make an imprint in that way. And when
Excuse
I
me.
say that, I mean like whether mentally, physically, or spiritually, to leave something that can set the people up in a better situation. Leave the world better than it was when I'm here. So
Well, I think you've kind of done that too, though, because two things that I've heard you say. One was sharing that experience with your sister, because you think about that's impactful to see I'm here with my sister. We have a pop-up shop and we're selling books. So I think it's very impactful. You sharing the experience with your sister and your siblings, seeing you go for your dreams because you're the older sibling. And the other thing is by you writing your book. Because I tell people about the great thing about writing books is when you and I are dead and gone, our books will still be here. So our words will
Yeah.
still be here. So somebody can still read your book. And I want to talk more about it before we get off. A couple more questions, but before we get off, I want to make sure we talk more in depth about your book. But yeah, so you're already doing that. Even once you're gone, you've impacted your siblings and other people that have read your book. Even evidently the barber, because it impacted him enough to be like, don't worry about it. Just put your book in here.
Yeah.
Don't worry about paying me. So
And Miss Nakia as well. I didn't know that she was using my book as a part of her program for the youth. So like
yeah.
that was a highlight when she told me that. Like things like that is what I mean. People will call me up and like say these things. I'm like, okay, well obviously you're doing good things because these things
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be coming back around to you like this. So keep doing it. Just verification for me. So I will keep doing it. I enjoy it. So yeah.
Well, something else that was very impressive to me when I did her interview. Most times when it's a person at the end will be like, you having the websites, books, anything you want to plug. Instead of her plugging something for herself because of the impact you had, she plugged you. She didn't
Oh
talk about,
yeah.
oh, I'm working my PhD. It was, let me tell you about this author. She does Black books and, Black children's books, and she's awesome. Da, 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 da. I'm using it for my program. So that's when your reputation precedes you, because instead of her taking the time for spotlight for herself, she used it for you. That's how I end up, in contact with you. And I'm like, I need to meet this young lady because she's got a whole plug on
Yeah.
this podcast. I haven't even met you at that time. So
Yeah, I'm so grateful for her. She's amazing.
she's good people. She is good people. All right. So a question I have for you, like I said, I want two more questions. Who has been the single most inspirational person for you in your life, past or present?
So I have two answers.
That's fine.
As far as my my writing and my storytelling, I
Mhm.
would have to accredit that to my sixth grade teacher, Miss Tanya Bowles from Fraser Elementary. So I feel like in sixth grade we had to read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Marjr D. Taylor.
Yeah, there's somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, and Marjr D. Taylor is one of my favorite writers as well that inspire me. But the way Miss Bowles, she would always like read aloud. I remember like in sixth grade, we were like in a little trailer and she
Mhm.
would walk around reading where we would read like a chapter a day as a class, and we would have to go home for homework and read the next chapter ourselves. And so I don't know, just the way she read that story, just so enthusiastic like she did. I look back and I'm like, I was really tuned into that story in the way that she like brought that to life with her
Mhm.
like just reading to us. You can like see these characters and feel these characters, and just like the way that she read it with so much life. Because like
Mhm.
anybody can read a book, but it's just like, the way that she read it, it just like really brought it to life. Like, I saw a movie like as she's walking around reading. So I think
Right.
things like that stuck with me. And also with that book, though, speaking of legacy, like that was the first time I was aware of legacy and what that meant in that book, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, because it was the whole thing about them preserving their family land.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then it's like
Mm-hmm.
me doing research on Marjr D. Taylor. She actually like her sales from that book, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, is actually how she bought back her family land. So I just thought that was like so remarkable as a kid, because like first I never really tied, oh, you can be a writer, an author, and like do all these like great things and powerful things. Like that's a big statement to make. She
Mm-hmm.
wrote that book. It was based off her family, and at some point they lost the rights to the land, but she bought it back by her work, her creative writing. So that was a big statement to me. So in my mind, like the grand plan, I want family land, a family home for my sisters and I. And I want to do
Mm-hmm.
that through my works. I want to take like my writing, my works all around the world.
Okay.
And I know that's a big vision, but it has to be, because and it's like I got examples to show it. If it has happened before, it can happen again. It's
Yep.
not rocket science. It
Yep.
may take longer. Your path is sure to be different from everyone else's,
Mm-hmm.
but the examples that I've studied showed me that it's possible. Also,
Hmm.
Mark Brown, who's the creator
Okay.
of Arthur of PBS Kids, he was a big impact in my life. And just looking at his life, how his life is set up, like he has like this beautiful home and this and that. And I'm just thinking like you can really, people really make careers after this with this. So if you continue just to work your soil, maybe you can grow and you can accomplish something like that.
Yes.
And I studied Mark Brown's story. He ironically started off in news as a journalist. He got fired because they felt like he basically was too silly. He did some stunt. He did something. It was like, but the news room thought it was inappropriate for a newsroom. He was just
Hmm.
being silly. And I just always like talking in different character voices. And I think he did that on TV or something. And they like fired him after that. So he was like, he went home to his son, and his son asked him to tell him a bedtime story. That bedtime story, the character in that story happened to be Arthur. And so from that, he wrote Arthur into a children's book. Arthur got so popular that he went to an award show and met a TV producer for PBS Kids, and that's how they
Hmm.
ended up with the show Arthur. And Arthur,
It's amazing. That is amazing. That's
and
amazing.
yeah, and like Arthur is like now the longest running children's animated series for
Known
25
worldwide.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like you just never know. And again, like his path, he thought that was it when he got fired from his high paying journalist job. You
Hmm.
know, and it's like, what am I gonna do now? And his son asked him, "Can you read me a bedtime story?" He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know his dad just lost his job. And so
Right.
it's like you never know how things work. And
Listen to God.
Dr. Seuss.
Hmm.
I've done research on like all these authors that's like made an impact in my life. Like I've gone back as an adult and like really researched their story, how they got from point A to point B. One of my like I'm a documentary girl, so I love watching documentaries on people's lives
Okay.
and how did they make this? How did they come to be? What's behind the
Hmm.
person that we see? I'm
Hmm.
very into stories like that.
Man, those great stories though, because like you say, all of them like our stories. One door is closed, and you think it's the end of the world or it sucks, and it ends up opening the door to what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. You know what
Yep.
God actually has planned for us. So, no, that's awesome, and I can tell you're passionate about it because of the fact that you did the research. You know, like you
Yeah.
went and looked into okay, so because I listen, I do motivational speaking, so I listen to other motivational speakers. I hear their stories, and what I've learned on my research and over this time is like you say, if you just stick with it, just don't give up. Like no today doesn't mean no forever. It just means okay, this didn't work. So now I know
Mm-hmm.
not to try that. Now I can go try X, Y, and Z. Like you don't get to be who you need to be at some point in time in your life without going through some failures and being told no. Even the greatest people have been told no before. That they became great because somebody did tell them they weren't good enough to do this one thing they thought they wanted
Right.
to do. So,
Right. Do you
all right,
know the story? Just one little nugget about like
okay,
I don't know, but do you know the story of how Dr. Seuss was named Dr. Seuss, or why
no,
he
no,
named himself that?
no,
So first of all, Dr. Seuss never had any kids, and apparently he wasn't really fond of kids. So all the stories that he wrote, he actually wrote from his own experience, and he just turned it into children's books. So these are he takes
did not
real
know that.
world experience. That's
Great
how it
eggs and
all works.
ham.
Yep, because he felt like from his perspective, he felt like kids are just little adults. So
They are.
eventually, even if they don't understand the story now, eventually they will grow to understand
Hmm.
what the meaning of it is. So I think
That,
that was smart because a
that's
lot of
wild.
people they like to assume. Well, this is one thing that kind of irks me. I don't like when
Okay.
I can tell when like people like try to dumb down their message so much so just because it's a child that they're trying to
Hmm.
connect with. But can we please give children more credibility? They're intelligent. So it's like you speak to them that way and
Hmm.
like they will rise to the occasion. And a lot of times kids end up teaching you something. It
They
works
will.
both ways, right? Back to the story. So Dr. Seuss, his father basically wanted him to be a doctor, but
Okay.
he was miserable in college trying to pursue like becoming a doctor. And his girlfriend at the time, she was an editor for the college, and he used to always draw like the cart. He was the cartoonist for the work for the newspaper in college, and
Okay.
she was just telling him like, you seem like you're really happy when you're drawing and creating these characters. Like, why don't you do that instead of like trying to do medicine? Because it doesn't seem like you're happy in it. And so, long story short, he decided to like pursue this. He decided to pursue the cartoonist thing and see where the journey takes him. But he
Mm-hmm.
promised himself that when I, because I chose this career path that's different from what my father wanted, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that I make just as much money as a doctor. So that's
Okay.
why he names it like Dr. Seuss, to show like I didn't necessarily have to choose that route. I wasn't happy in it, and it wasn't easy for him to like make that decision. Dad, the one who's paying for the college. So it's like
Right.
he really gambled on himself and took a risk. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was his whole thing. I'm just as important as a doctor. I thought
And you
that
have
was
to gamble
cool.
on. I think it's awesome, man. You have to gamble on yourself. I tell people like anybody we see is successful, they gambled on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't easy. And I don't matter if you see Denzel Washington who's acting, like we all had something we had to push through in order to get to where we are. And the same thing for you and I. We both want to leave a legacy, we want to leave an impact on these children, the next generation. So we have to go through the fires just like everybody else. And you have to just keep believing in yourself. Like you say, ending your contract wasn't easy, but you ended your contract being ended led you to the job you actually wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, now you can you're in the perfect place where you can combine the two. You've learned all these life lessons, and now you can pass those life lessons on to the next generation. I look forward to reading your book because I like what it represents. I can't wait to tell the
Yeah.
listeners about it. And there's another question. I like two more questions, but one of them we'll talk about is basically just asking you about any information you have that you want to plug about your book. So we'll definitely make sure we attach how to order your book, where to order it from, all that stuff at the end of your pod. So my other question, I get two questions. What goals you have coming up, personally, professionally, even spiritually? And then at the end, is there any websites or anything that you'd like to plug before we end the pod?
So my long-term vision,
Mm-hmm.
long-term goal is to sell my work all over the world and inspire like people all over the world by my words,
Okay.
by the things that I create. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
it's so fulfilling to like experience. You can't put a dollar amount on. It's just something that you just can't explain. Something that I was so happy when I got my author proof through the mail for the
Mm-hmm.
very first time,
Me
because I
too.
just couldn't believe this
I
is
did
like
this.
these were things that were in my head that
Mm-hmm.
are now being mailed and sent out to others through the mail. That's remarkable. You can't even explain it. And then on top of that, people actually connect with it. They actually are
Mm-hmm.
impacted by it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that, like, that's God given. You can't really explain it because you can
Mm-hmm.
create something, but you don't know how people are going to be with receptive of it or not.
Right.
So that's my whole thing. Like, just try it and see. Just try it and
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. But like I said, at the core of it, make sure it's something that you genuinely care about and connect with. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the key of knowing, like, that if you can connect with it, 9 times out of 10, there's other people out there that can connect with it as well. We all like to
That's
think that
it.
we're so unique, but really we aren't, you know. So yeah.
Yeah.
So like, that would be my big goal, to like
Okay.
connect globally and
Excuse me.
live comfortably off that, and
Mm-hmm.
continue to show my loved ones that like you can go beyond the boundaries of what they just set for you in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's it.
yeah.
Be the lightning rod. Somebody got to
Yeah.
be it. Okay. I like that. So, where can they get the copies of your book? I guess how many books do you have out? All the information you want to give us, and of course, I'll attach it to the podcast.
So I currently have 4 children's books published, and that's Still a Rose, Cry for Penny, Big Mad, and Love is spelled Time. And
Okay.
all of those are available on Amazon and my website, which is
Mm-hmm.
tmstories.com.
Okay.
Or if you just Google my author name, it'll pull up all of the links and information. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, and I have an event that I have coming up at the Orange Library, the new Orange Mound Library, because they changed Melrose. The original
Okay.
Melrose building is now the library off
Okay.
Dallas Street. So I
Okay.
will be having an event there on January 18th. It's a independent children's book author workshop. So if you ever had a children's book that you want to actualize, publish, you need any pointers on, or you already got books out there, like let's information, let's all come together and like, you know, try to make these visions, these goals happen. So I'll be hosting that workshop on January 18th. And yeah, that's the most recent thing I have coming up that I'm working on.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I will plans to attend unless I'm out of town or something, but I will make plans to attend. I would love to, pick your brain and kind of share some ideas. And just I always try to support people from the show, and just in our community, I try to support everybody. So I will make plans to be out there. I think your story is amazing. I think we'll probably come on again at some point in time later down the line and talk again, because I want to hear even more about your story. I think it's just good to support people, and you're doing something right. Again, when somebody else comes on the show before you and they spend the whole last 10 minutes talking about you instead of talking about themselves. So I'm proud of you. I can't wait to read your story. I have I have two younger nieces, two little nieces, and I'll get a copy for each one of them, or at least one or two of the books. Okay. Send it to them. Lyric and Dixie will enjoy these. They're at that age where
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. And also, for that workshop, you have to register on the Memphis Public Library website.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think it's the day of, but it's registered up to 20 people, so it's like 20 slots. Okay. And it's up now if anybody wants to. Yeah, go ahead. But I look forward to seeing you there. I'm looking forward to this workshop. So I love this. Like I love like helping people on their journey, and like because my whole thing is like all of the research that I had to do and get together, I want to like make other people's journey a little more smoother in the beginning, so they can just have it right there, ABC in front of them of do this, you do this, you do that, instead of going through all the errors and mistakes. I've done these workshops in the past, and I've had people tell me like they were trying to be independently published, but they was not aware that they could publish it on Amazon. So one lady told me like she ended up spending like a couple $1,000s trying to get a publisher to put her book out, and it's still not out.
Heard the same thing before.
Just to save, things like that, like save you the trouble, save you the time, save you the money. So yeah.
And here's the thing about that. Now I won't hold you, but the thing about what you're doing, like what you just said, that's where your blessings will come from, because you're being a blessing to somebody else. You're not asking for anything that's in return. You're just trying to help somebody. And then by doing that, somebody else will end up helping you. That's kind of how it works. You help people, and God helps you. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I hear the same stories, people paying thousands of dollars and still not being published, or basically people just getting over on them. I'm like, because I went through the process, it was the same thing. I was like, oh, I can do this myself. I mean, I can pay for some stuff, some editing, but most I can publish just myself, and I have to pay, Amazon gets their cut, but I can deal with it because all they do, they distribute it and everything, so.
Right.
But again, if you've never written a book, you don't know how to do all of that. And it can take you a whole year to figure that out, because you're still working. Most people are still working while they're trying to publish a book. So.
Right.
I think it's awesome what you're doing again.
Thank you. And I think your show is awesome. Like things like this brighten my day. So I'm glad that we've met. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Alex, I look forward to having you back on. We'll talk again. I will on the show. But I definitely will. I got your information. If you ever need me, just reach out, text, call, whatever, and I can do to help. I will. And we'll be talking again before the workshop anyway.
Okay. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, and have a good evening too.
All right. See you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Lessons and Legacy. I hope you found that discussion thought-provoking and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to improve and reach more listeners like you. Remember, life is a journey of growth and discovery. In every experience, both the highs and the lows contribute to the legacy we leave behind. So embrace each moment, cherish the lessons, and live with purpose. Until next time, I'm Mr. Cedric D. Nelson, and you can find more resources, including my book, Life Lessons and Legacy, available for purchase on my website at www.lifelessonsandlegacy.com, also available on Amazon.com. And on my website, You can also discover information about my life coaching services and speaking engagements designed to help you unlock your full potential and live a life full of purpose. Again, until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.